But there's something about Van Gogh's legacy which is much more important than his fathering this or that ism of modern art. Vincent's passionate belief was that people wouldn't just see his pictures, but feel the rush of life in them.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most trusted voice in true crime. 130 years ago today, in Auvers-sur-Oise, a letter arrived from Theo Van Gogh to Vincent. It was written from Paris on the 23rd of June 1890. This is the letter. My dear Vincent, I have something to write to you which I think will give you pleasure. Yesterday I was first at the salon with Gogh, who then came to lunch, after which we saw your paintings. He likes them very much, and it seems to me that he understands them. As you had said that you would willingly do an exchange with him when I saw that he preferred the canvas you did after reading Rod's book. I told him that he could take that one in exchange for a painting of his. He seemed delighted and put everything he had at your disposal. See, so this is not exactly a sale, but it's an exchange, and it's actually quite a nice painting. I quite like it myself. It's called The Alpilles with a Hut, and it sort of just shows the mountains in the background with, it's quite difficult to see the hut, but you see that hut sort of seems to have like a green roof ensconced between all the vegetation. I don't know whether the painting means something to me because I cycled, with a mountain bike through that territory. This was obviously painted in 1889 while he was at the asylum. So the Alpilles refers to that sort of mountainous terrain close to the asylum. So, but all in all, it's I quite like that particular painting. He goes on to say, I went with him to see what he had with him, and among them was a canvas of around number 20 done at Frameries in the Borinage, depicting the factory of Gachet and Percry, which perhaps you remember. The whole factory is in smoke and steam and stands out darkly with very bright reflections of the sun on one side against the green wheat. The sky is very luminous. And so this is a painting by Eugene Gogh, another artist, and it's kind of a strange combination of sort of dull and sort of bright. It's a combination of the shadowy industrial landscape with the sort of bright, almost luminous, I guess, wheat fields or farm fields, countryside in the background. I'm not sure if I would describe the sky as luminous, but then I guess we're comparing it to the South African sky. And, I think at that time, industry was something to sort of marvel at. It was something that was interesting. I mean, can you imagine painting a power station today? No one really would necessarily. I've seen some artistic photographs of pumping jacks on the sort of Colorado landscape that has some sort of artistic merit, but I guess it depends what era you're in. In any event, this painting had some significance for Van Gogh because, of course, he spent some time as a lay preacher in the Borinage, and he meant to be penniless. He meant to be kind of a martyr for God, or just like a pastor for the people. That's kind of what he meant himself to be, and he went from that to being kind of a painter for the people, if that makes sense. Theo goes on to say, I think that above all, the subject and the intention of what he wanted to do are remarkable. It's neither very skillful nor powerful, but very sincere, like the fellow himself. I don't know about you, but I look at that artwork and I'm kind of unmoved. I'm like, But I guess sometimes when you know the artist, the art and artwork can speak to you. I don't know if that works with writers and writing, but sometimes when you get to know someone, you feel their voice, you experience their voice in a way that's different when you don't. And sometimes the opposite. Sometimes when you don't know someone, you have a sense of them that can be ruined or influenced, not always positively, when you meet the author or artist, or when you interact with them in some way. Your esteem for a particular person can be diminished because that person turns out not to be a god but only human, right, kind of thing. But sometimes the opposite. Sometimes you like a person so much that you like their art as well, or you like their creations. I think that also is a fact and a factor, and I think you sometimes have that with actors. Sometimes you like them because you find them very attractive, or you like them because you think they're really good looking. Their acting's not necessarily that great. And funny enough, just the other day I watched a movie, Alien 3. I've seen it before, but I was watching it again, and I didn't think Sigourney Weaver put in a particularly good performance. I thought some of the guys playing the prisoners did a better job than what she did in certain little pieces. Obviously, when I first watched the movie, I loved her performance, but having watched it again, I sort of noticed things that I'd noticed before, and I thought Sigourney Weaver could have done a better job, which I think is interesting. I think sometimes you are so your sentiment is so strongly in favor of someone that they can do no wrong, that you don't see the niggles and you look past the imperfections. Not even that you look past them, you just can't see them. I don't think that's the case here. It's hard to say without meeting Eugene Boch and knowing more about him. Anyway, Theo goes on to say, if you don't like this canvas, he'll willingly change it for another, but it would astonish me if you didn't like it at all. So it seems like this was the picture that was going to be exchanged for Van Gogh's artwork, and I tend to prefer Van Gogh's. I don't know about you. Anyway, he goes on to say, the salon is pitiful. There's almost nothing there that isn't profoundly boring. And here Theo is talking about I think another exhibition. I think he's referring to other artworks, and he says, you though judged well as regards the cost. If I had to choose one, that's the one I'd take. Not quite sure what that's in reference to. And then he says it is Easter flowers. I think that's just the painting is saying he would if he had to pick one, he'd pick that one. He says it's very gentle and harmonious, and all the same there's color in it. The Janines are good too, but they're full of bluster. I saw Quas the other day and I spoke to him about you. I was telling him that you liked his talent very much, which pleased him very much. He said, if you come to Paris, you mustn't fail to go and see him. He'll be very pleased when you come to see him either in the park or at his place. I find this letter kind of boring. We almost at the end of it, so don't worry about that. There is an interesting reference to Dr. Gachet coming up. But before we get to that, what I want to just address quickly is Theo sort of talking to Vincent about kind of networking. He's sort of talking about other artists that are interested in his work and other people. And bear in mind, Van Gogh has come from sort of zero. He's come from the asylum where nothing has happened, where he's had nothing common with anyone. And through Theo, he's kind of being set up and sort of brought back into the bosom of the art community, and that's kind of what this letter is all about. It doesn't really matter who the people are he's referring to or the artworks, but this is the kind of thing that is happening in the essentially the third or fourth week that is in Orves, who was Theo sort of trying to help ensconce his brother back into the art community, and I think this would make his brother feel encouraged and enthusiastic and, and happy, comforted, I guess. And he goes on to say, now I must tell you something about your etching. He says, it's a real painter's etching. No refinement in the procedure, but a drawing done on metal. I like this drawing very much. Gogh also liked it. To be honest, I don't really like it very much. I don't think it's executed very well, but maybe it's because I just don't like Dr. Gachet. Maybe that's the reason. I think the first couple of times that I saw this etching, I actually thought it was fake. I thought it was done so badly that I thought it was fake. And I think that also speaks, and I mean, this is just my personal view of Van Gogh. There are quite a few paintings and sketches and so on that I am pretty sure are fake, and I think some are fake, but there's some that may not be fake, but they're just really bad executions by Van Gogh, and I don't think that reflects very well on him, where it's hard to say whether it's even though it's really badly executed, it's nevertheless a Van Gogh. I don't think that reflects very well on the artist. It's just my personal view. He goes on to say, after saying I like this drawing very much, he says, it's amusing that Dr. Gachet has this press, and says painters who make etchings always complaining that they have to go to the printer for the proofs. Now, I think what's worth noting here, besides the quality of the sketch and the craftsmanship or the standard of the execution, this is yet another portrait of Dr. Gachet, which means, in a relatively brief period of time, around about 1 month, Vincent has painted his portrait and sketched his portrait, or sketched Dr. Gachet's likeness. I don't know whether Vincent sort of is using what he maybe sketched previously from memory from the first portrait, but I doubt it, because in this one he doesn't have his hand against his face. He's got a pipe in his mouth. And of course, in the portrait of Dr. Gachet, there are books on the table. There's sort of a flowering head of digitalis or foxglove. He's got his one hand on like a orange table, and the other hand balled up and sort of pushed against his cheek. There's no pipe in that particular painting. So the etching seems to show a different sitting of Dr. Van Gachet. And I think that is just also showing you how much Vincent is at Dr. Gachet, how much they are hanging out together. Bear in mind as well that Vincent had previously said he's going to be drawing, or he's going to be doing the portrait of Dr. Gachet's daughter. That still hasn't happened yet. Why is it taking quite a while? It's now around about 3 weeks since he sort of enthusiastically told everyone that he was going to paint this sort of 19-year-old's portrait. That still hasn't happened. Why is it taking so long? Is it because Marguerite's shy? Is it because Dr. Gachet's becoming, what's the word? Not tentative, but becoming a little bit anxious or protective? Or could it be because Van Gogh is sort of not whining about it, but sort of repeatedly asking Marguerite and Dr. Gachet, and that's kind of making them nervous? Back to Theo's letter. Theo says, I think that Omens has a lot of good, and I would very much like you to be of that opinion. We're already looking forward with a great deal of pleasure to coming to see you soon. For different reasons, first to see you, secondly to see your work, thirdly for the beautiful nature, and fourthly because I hope that seeing the countryside will give me strength for being able to work a great deal. Now this is a very interesting reference by Theo to his own health. He's saying, I also need to go to the countryside because I need that kind of shot in the arm. I need that kind of I need resilience, for I need to do a lot of work because I've got this family, and I need strength to put in a lot of hours and whatnot. And then he says the Raffaelli exhibition is finished. Now the people are all going to the country, and I'm not losing much by not being there. So he's sort of saying, there's definitely an opportunity for him to take a break, to take a sort of a holiday. It's kind of ironic this, because, and maybe it kind of got Vincent van Gogh's hopes up that, wow, I think I'm going to see my brother now. But then there was like a turn of fate. There was like a twist of fate, and things didn't quite go the way anyone expected, unfortunately. And we're going to be dealing with that in the letters that come. The very next letter we'll deal with is tomorrow, the 24th of June, which we'll get to tomorrow. This letter ends with Theo saying, I'm enclosing 50 francs for you with this letter. Last week Joe had to stay in bed all the time, but fortunately it's gone now. It doesn't say what's wrong with her, but evidently she's been ill. And that is the thing that is haunting these people. Illness. And I don't think you can get away from the thought or the idea that if Theo van Gogh has syphilis, and he did, he died of syphilis around about 6 or 7 months after this particular letter. So if we say, if Theo had syphilis, wasn't he giving it to Joe, and wasn't the little child also suffering with illness as a result of Theo's syphilis? It's a question. But the bottom line is these people are sickly, and they kind of in a situation where they don't know what they have, and they don't know how to treat what they have. And even if they did know what they had, I don't know if they would know how to treat it in 1890. And that's the situation they were in. So Joe is ill now. We heard previously that the little child was ill. Theo says, fortunately it's gone now. So in other words, it seems like Joe was in bed for a week, but fortunately she's better now. Now bear in mind, this is in midsummer. It's in midsummer that Joe's ill. He says the little one is well, and then he says warm regards also from Joe and the little one, ever yours, Theo. And that's it. We'll resume with the correspondence tomorrow, the 24th of June, which would be 134 years ago that letter was written. If you haven't subscribed yet to this channel, please do like, share, leave a comment, and I'll see you guys next time.